Today, we're talking about how to keep yourself protected. When you're protected, you're educated, you can gain control, you can gain confidence, you can gain clarity in what is overall a very uncertain chapter of your life. So let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today I have Elizabeth Neyens with us. Now, she is the owner and attorney at Neyens Law. She's assisted hundreds of families with their estate planning needs, and she really started this because she wanted to help solve families' problems during difficult times. So thank you for joining us today, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Erica.
Good. Well, I was excited to have this chat. I had the opportunity to actually go meet you in person. So often when you're in the podcast online world, everything is remote. So when you're like, hey, I'm not that far, let's run over and chat. So we had the opportunity to chat a couple weeks ago. And there were some really key topics that came up that we wanted to bring to life for you guys as listeners. So I think the first one, though, that let's just address, right, is kind of the heavy weight, the emotional turmoil that is divorce, because there's the business and there's the emotions. And sometimes we muddy those two up together.
Yes. Always we muddy them up together.
Always. I was just talking to a New York lawyer this week, and she's like, so often people want their lawyer to be their therapist. And I was like, yes, guilty. I did that same thing because somebody is walking the path with you and they are so deep in the practice of or the understanding of what you're going through. And so we start to kind of blur those lines a little bit. But are there themes or things that you've seen in your career that kind of come up often that maybe our listeners want to know about to try and avoid?
Yeah, a couple of things that often come up when people are dealing with the divorce is feeling a loss of control. It's we all think about the future more frequently than you realize. And so you've pictured your life happening a certain way. And then when you go through a divorce, it's like everything you thought you knew about your life moving forward has now changed. And so it's really hard for people to come to grips with this is going to be a totally different chapter than what you envisioned. And although sometimes that can be a really good thing when you're in the midst of it, it feels very scary and you're grasping at any way to gain control. And so you see people just doing things they normally wouldn't do because they're just trying to make sense of everything and feel like they have a say in what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I love that. And I was very guilty of aspects of that as well, like I'm trying to think here that there definitely were like trying to control co-parenting. That's a different topic. But even just in terms of afterwards and getting restarted, trying to control the details of, where is the money going to come from and how safe and secure am I? And we start to forget you get married, you think it's going to be forever. I think that, okay, I always have this other person to put on my beneficiary forms. I always have this other person who I get to like text, board it up, doors are closed. I'll text you when I land. And those are those little pieces that we don't realize. And when we don't protect ourselves in that way, it kind of puts you at risk or puts you in a place of kind of being overwhelmed by not knowing what else you need to plan for.
Hmm. No, that's very true.
What would you say then? Because you were a family law attorney turned estate planning law. So something brought you into the other side of the world, right? What brought you from family law into estate planning?
I think in estate planning, what makes it unique and different is we're really able to provide peace of mind to clients. Being a divorce attorney, although it was very rewarding, I had amazing clients. It was nice to be able to help people through hard times. We're still able to do that in the estate planning side, but it's just so wonderful. People leave our office and they're just so grateful. They feel better that they're prepared. And so it's just been really just a rewarding way to work with families. And of course, we help on the back end also when things happen to loved ones, and just helping people realize, this is not as scary of a topic as you would think. You will feel empowered because you're in the driver's seat of deciding, who's going to take care of your kids to some degree, but also who would manage their money, because you probably wouldn't want your ex to manage their money if they were to inherit when they were young. So it's an opportunity to really plan your future and take control of that now that your life looks different.
Yeah, I always think of estate planning as like, you're 70, you're retired. And I think we need to shift that mindset because there were a lot of areas that I became aware of, specifically one that you just mentioned, moving. It was fine to move my ex off as a beneficiary and move my son on because pretty much I think I had both of them on most of my things, my 401ks or my investments or whatever. But then, my son is not 18. And so I was like, "Well, it's assigned to him." Until somebody was like, "Yeah, but he's not 18. So who do you think is going to be getting control of that should something unforeseen and unplanned happen?" So being able to really understand what estate planning is helpful for our listeners to know, like, well, what is it? Then when do I need it? Do I need it when I'm still married? Do I need it in the divorce process? Do I do it after the divorce process? So let's start with those two. Like, specifically, what is estate planning?
Sure. So estate planning is really thinking about planning for two events that may occur in your life. One that will definitely occur. We're all going to die, so we're planning for that. That's 100% certainty. However, most people don't plan for it, and it's we plan for weddings and all sorts of things. Saving for a down payment on a house, but nobody wants to think about it, but it's a reality. So we're planning for what happens upon your death. Where do all the things you've accumulated over your life go? And how do they get to that person? To your point, if you have a minor, they can't inherit under 18. So how does that look? And then we also need to plan for a possibility of either permanent or temporary disability. So perhaps you were in a car accident, you're unconscious for a period of time, you're trying to recover and you're not fully mentally there. So somebody needs to be managing your money and maybe making legal decisions for you, or perhaps permanent disability like Alzheimer's or something along those lines, where this it's going to be a long-term effect. It could be mental or physical. So sometimes people are fine mentally, but physically they may be paralyzed and are unable to sign their name or do other things. So it's important to make sure we have legal documents in place, because if you don't, it gets very messy and you will have to get court involved, and the court may appoint people you don't want to be in charge of these things.
Yeah, so the estate planning gives you the ability to select who gets to make decisions. So as you were kind of listing them off, right? I think we all are familiar with, well, you should have a will, and then the other one, your medical directive, right? What is that one called?
Yeah, we call it advanced healthcare directive in Minnesota. Yeah, make someone to make healthcare decisions if you're unable to.
Yeah, so these are important pieces even when you are married too, because there are times, if that person doesn't have advanced medical directive, but they are your spouse, they still might not be able to get access to the information. All right, so those are kind of the two big areas. We need to make sure that people know what happens to your stuff when you someday die, and it gives this emergency directive if something unforeseen happens where you are unable to now make those decisions or move forward with that. So then my second question was, when do they really need it? I mean, we all know we need a will, but if they're sitting in a place of, I'm married, contemplating divorce, or I'm in the divorce process, or I'm after the divorce process, is there one specific place that you see the best timing to really start to work through these pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I think there first of all, there's some things you cannot do once you filed for divorce. Okay. So you can't just go changing beneficiaries. There are certain limitations on what you could do depending on your state. So you have to work with your divorce attorney, make sure you don't do something you shouldn't be doing. During your divorce, I don't think there's any issue with updating your healthcare agents, but also your financial powers of attorney. So that just means, hey, someone can manage my money if I was incapacitated, or sign legal contracts for me. So that's really important also.
Yeah, because, when we were married, we thought it was our spouse. So we
Right,
thought
right.
we had the default person already signed up for it.
Yeah, and so, spouses are entitled to certain things by law if you were to die and you were married. So when you're going through the divorce, there's a very gray area there of what you're allowed to do. So again, talk to your divorce attorney. The other thing with wills, people think it solves all their problems. It really doesn't. It only controls a very small portion of what you own. So we do a lot of trust in our office because that can direct everything. But I would say your money is probably better spent once your divorce is finalized, updating your estate planning documents. You could do that during your lifetime to some degree, but you're going to be a little limited based on what you're allowed to do during the proceeding. Plus, you're already grappling with enough as it is.
Right, you're already grappling. I mean, the nice part is during the proceedings, prior to the proceedings and during the proceedings, you had to make a list of all your financial whereabouts, right? And I've shared it before, like I forgot. I forgot. Like I thought this letter I kept getting from my former employee, because it didn't say pension, it had their like, lingo name on it. I thought it was money. And then they're like, no, no, this is you have a pension. And I was like, oh, getting divorced. It was a pain in the butt, but combing through all of those places, comb through every place a family member had opened up a college investment account for our son. We combed through all the 401ks and the retirement stuff and really where was the money? Well, now it was all listed. It's all there. It's in the documents. You can take that directly once the divorce is final and be like, okay, I got a picture of what I have. Now let's protect it. Now let's move through the next step and hire somebody to help me figure out what are the legal documents I need in place to start this next chapter.
Yeah, it is good timing in that sense that you've taken the time of what we call this a one stage of homework we give clients is we need to know where everything is today so we make sure your plan's going to work. So to your point, you've done the work because you have to through the divorce proceedings. So it's good timing to just tackle it once your divorce has been finalized.
Yeah. Why do people avoid it?
Nobody wants to think about dying, right? That's something that happens to other people, or, nothing's going to happen to me till, I'm going to be like 98. But there are things that happen all the time. You don't have to like obsess about it. But, we've had clients have aneurysms and just out of nowhere, 30 in their 30s, and just like go to the gym, they're on treadmill. And next thing you know, they're not here anymore. Accidents happen, progressive diseases happen where all of a sudden you're going downhill and sometimes out of nowhere. I always tell people the time to plan is anybody 18 and older needs some type of plan. No, 18-year-olds may just need a couple of things. But any parents out there, if you have kids in college, technically they're legal adults. I mean, they're pretty immature, but you no longer have power over them under the law. So it's really critical that everybody 18 older has some legal documents in place. So again, they may not need a full-blown plan, but there are certain things they definitely will need.
How often do you have to update it?
It depends. I would say we recommend checking in every 5 years. But of course, if there's any major life events or health diagnoses on the client's end, sometimes that warrants a change to the plan, sometimes not. It might be good for a very long time. It just really depends.
Oh, that's good to know. It's not like an annual thing. So we just got to go take a look at it every 5 years and see. I think for me, full confession, I still haven't done that. So I'm on the list, right? It's part of 2025's goals because life was busy. There was a lot of change. There was a lot of shift. And it was something that I was like, oh, I know I need to draft this. I know I need to get it done. But when it lives as this other thing and it lives as this unknown thing, how much more work is it going to cause for me? And how much time is it going to take? And how much money is it going to take? It's really easy to put it off. So instead, being aware. So is it like one or two meetings? How often does somebody meet with you to be able to get through this plan?
So, I mean, every firm is going to have a different process. We have a very comprehensive process because we want to make sure from beginning to end, by the time we get to the end of the process, you feel great. Like we've answered every question that's popped up along the way. We've got a plan that you're happy with, you're feeling good. So, we do a deeper dive than most firms. We want to make sure that we are covering every little piece. So, you're not leaving going, I don't know what just happened. So we actually have a 5-step process. We start with the consultation, which is a chance for you to interview us, but also for us to get to know you and see how we can help you. So that's kind of the starting point of the 5-step process.
And it's probably based by state, probably kind of like lawyers too. It's like state controlled or not so much.
Not so much. I think it depends on, there are some attorneys out there that are very much like fill out a form and come in and sign your documents next week.
Yeah.
I would not recommend working with them. One, they probably don't know their craft, and two, they're not going to cover all the things that are important to you and help you think about all the possibilities. I mean, that's part of our job is to share those things with you. We've been through this a million times. I will tell you, it will be a better experience than your divorce.
Right. I think we're all like, I don't ever want to have to talk to a lawyer again.
Yeah.
Good lawyer chat, guys. This is the fun one. This is not a like, "Oh my god."
And it will cost less than your divorce. So there's that also. So it's all good news.
It's all good news, and I think there's peace of mind in knowing, like, just get it done. Just get it done, and you put it in the safe, and it's filed, and, like, everything is laid out. It definitely is a high priority for me for 2025, especially because there are some shifts coming in investment stuff, like, you used to be able to and it really depends on the firm, but, like, I could put my son as a beneficiary, and then as I could select a guardian through their stuff, and some of them are shifting that, which means that I'm like, okay, so unless I go fill out the legal paperwork, it'll default to his dad. And we have a great relationship. So am I real concerned about that? No. But I think money makes people do funny things. And so I think like it's just creating that safety and security. And if you didn't have a good end of your marriage and a good divorce, then there's even more of a reason to protect yourself.
Yeah, I mean, more than likely, you probably don't want your ex being charged your child's money. The other thing you just pointed out, and that custodians are kind of like the ones on the financials that like, hey, if a minor inherits, this is who I want to manage their money. The other thing too is if you're relying on that beneficiary designation instead of using a trust or some other planning tool, your child's going to inherit at 18 or 21, depending on the state laws. I mean, do you want your kid to even get 20,000, much less a $500,000, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know any 18-year-old that would be responsible with that. So there are other ways to plan to be like, hey, we're going to protect you from yourself. And we can delay or stagger how and when you get access and make sure we have an adult or responsible gatekeeper in the meantime. So just to give you the peace of mind that you're not leaving them a problem where they're going to miss out on the benefit of having those funds.
Yeah, that's actually I'm laughing on the inside because we were blessed growing up that, my parents had put a little bit away every paycheck to that in an investment that was our college fund. So that was money that when we turned 18, we could use it for college or whatever. My brother bought a motorcycle. My brother was like, "Well, I thought there was more left over." Like he went and bought a motorcycle. I paid for college. He's got a degree. He's doing very well. But like it's
Yeah.
funny because all of a sudden we get this money and we're like, there's so much money. I can do all this stuff with it. And then poof, one day it's gone. If you've been struggling to find the right support to help you figure out what your next step is, the club is your answer. Launching this summer, we'll be hosting a private divorce group for you to get the support, the inspiration, and the guidance you need to be able to find the answers for you to finally move forward. No matter if you are unhappily married, trying to figure out what those next steps are, or in those early phases of separation and divorce where it feels like a constant uphill battle and you just want to get your feet underneath you, the club is going to be your place. Every single month, I offer support calls, networking calls to meet other women, and a signature program to guide you from confusion to clarity. On top of that, my most favorite part is every quarter, I'm going to send you a healing gift. You get a kit full of tools, support items, things to help you on your healing journey. The club is going to open up this summer, so make sure to get on the wait list. The link is in the show notes so that you have early access. You mentioned trusts. This is a topic that I am really intrigued with lately because you see all the jazz online, you guys. You see all the reels that are like, ooh, bury it in a trust and the government can't get to it and all this other stuff. But is a trust something that also falls under like an area of expertise for an estate planner?
Yes. So again, strangely, our area of law, there's a lot of dabblers for whatever reason. There just tends to be. I mean, I've seen people come in. I had a client who had $8 million and this attorney did a will for him, which was in no way appropriate. So trusts are very common these days. You don't have to be Bill Gates. They have lots of benefits. If done properly, we never need a court proceeding if you become disabled or pass away. And you can build in all sorts of rules that will be followed at your death. Like if you have minors, they don't have to inherit at 18 or 21. We can do special tax planning. So they're great. I mean, for most of the clients that we see for our demographic, we like 99% of what we do are trust. They're a great planning tool. You don't have to be a billionaire. Now there's different types of trust. Okay. Like there's lots of tax implications. If you are Bill Gates, you probably got a million trusts. And there's different types of trust. But even just your average person who's out there, married or not married, working a job that has assets or has real estate is typically a good fit. But we figured that out on a case by case basis.
Yeah, because that was the next thing, I think we all hear about trusts and we're like, "Oh, it's millionaires," that is the generational wealth that the very rich, those handful of names that all own hotel chains and whatever else run with. So we need to shift that narrative and at least become educated for yourself on if you are a candidate that would benefit from trust. And the limited knowledge I have is it definitely changes things like, everyone talks about inheritance taxes and whatnot. And so if things are set up, in a trust versus a will, there are some ways that you leave those you love better off than adding more tax to their. I mean, if you watched Yellowstone, you know that they lost the ranch because of the inheritance tax.
Yes, yes, lots of benefits.
So, all right. So, how does somebody find an estate planner? So, I know you have a special for Mother's Day that's coming up. So, I do want to have you share that. And then that kind of ties into that question because you're located here in the great Midwest. We're in the Minnesota area, but they don't have to be in Minnesota to be able to work with you.
Well, typically, I'm only licensed in Minnesota. I could work with somebody from Wisconsin. I have a colleague that I could practice under her license technically, but typically we work mostly with people in Minnesota. Other states, we probably wouldn't necessarily work with them, but I do have a network of attorneys. I know quite a few people in like Arizona and other states where a lot of people in the Midwest tend to go. Really, the first step, at least how we operate, you would contact us for a consultation. Part of our process, because to your point, people are like, I don't even know what this is about. I know I need to do it. We send them a webinar link to watch before you come in for the consultation that'll tell you kind of in a story format, kind of differences between wills and trusts. And we introduce you to a family to illustrate some of the points. So people really enjoy that because you're going to come in feeling like, oh, I actually have some things I want to ask and I have a better idea of how these things work. And it just makes it so much more productive for you when you meet with us.
I love that. Well, everybody can use the video, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Watch the video to be better educated. Well, we'll have all of Elizabeth's contact info in the show notes, but why don't you tell listeners what your special offer is? If they're interested, they can reach out.
Yes, yes. So every year on Mother's Day, we do a Mother's Day giveaway for a single mom. We do a free basic will estate plan for them, which includes your will, your powers of attorney, and your healthcare directive. And so we will be posting that soon on social media. So, a couple ways you can nominate somebody that you care about, and feel free to give us a compelling story because those help. You can either follow us on social media and keep your eyes peeled for the post because we'll do that closer to Mother's Day. You can go to our website at neyenslaw.com and subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll see that too, because we always announce it in the newsletter. And of course, you could just email us if you wanted to as well, or whatnot. So yeah, if you know somebody in your life that you feel like is just so deserving, they've been through a tough time and they need to get this done, it's just a great opportunity to do that.
I love that. So, you guys, you can find Elizabeth's website and social handles down in the show notes. You can reach out, you can check out that video, but really take a little bit of time for yourself to get educated around estate planning. In fact, you just said those three documents that you guys are giving away. So, say them again slowly so
A
everybody.
will, power of attorney, and healthcare directive. And then if it's somebody who wants to do a trust, we would be doing that at a reduced rate.
And the other thing that I think I want to mention, because, we've all seen it, there are plenty of online places, do it yourself, setting up your own will and whatever else. And I think we've learned there's a space for both, like taxes. It's kind of tax time right now. There's a time when you do it yourself, and there's a time when you pay H&R Block, and there's a time when you pay a private accountant who can really go through different pieces. And it all comes down to what's at risk. And so when you are sitting in a space of you just gone through and you've got clear on your finances and you know what's there, I think that it's worth it to reach out to an actual person, an actual estate planner to understand what that investment would look like versus just being like, okay, well, I can just go do this online. You absolutely can. You absolutely can. Is it going to catch everything? No. What you're missing is paying somebody for their experience to be able to guide you through it.
Yeah, and to give you strategies. And the hard part is like you won't know what's missing till it's too late.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. In college, I used to do my own taxes. I brought in like a H&R Block guy to teach a little class for us, and that was great. I was a college student and I had one W-2. I didn't own a house, I didn't have a kid, I didn't have write-offs yet. Great. But there is definitely a benefit to somebody else being the expert and saying, "Hey, let's talk through this. You might qualify for this, or hey, we need to look at this and see if we need to protect an asset in this way. And same thing with that, looking at that trust, right? Like, how are you building it now so that it's there for future generations? Well, thank you, Elizabeth, so much
You're
for sharing your
welcome.
knowledge on estate planning. Hopefully, you guys are feeling empowered and excited, right? Everyone's excited to call a lawyer. No, but hopefully you're feeling like, okay, do you need to put this on your 2025 to-do list? And it comes in phases, go check out Elizabeth's link, go do a little research, Google and see who's in your area, have some free consultation calls and see when you find that fit. We want to make sure that you are protected in your next phase. So until next week, you guys take care of yourself, take a look at your estate and see what you need to protect. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.